The U.S. intervention stems from concerns over the Panama Canal, which has long been the foundation of U.S.-Panama relations. As a key maritime hub connecting the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, the canal holds significant strategic value. More than 76% of the cargo passing through the Panama Canal originates from or is destined for the U.S., and 40% of U.S. container shipping relies on this waterway. However, the U.S. is primarily concerned about China's growing influence in Balboa and Cristobal ports. Does this indicate that the U.S. fears China could potentially gain control over the canal? So, Professor Tsai, my question for you is that we understand now the situation is Panama choose to be more closely aligned with the United States. Do you think that China's growing presence in the canal is really the major concern for the U.S., or is this move, one of the first moves by President Trump, is only a strategic consideration?
I think it's both. Yeah, it's very important because for Donald Trump targeting Chinese influence in the Panama Canal, I think it's rooted in strategic calculation. The U.S. has a deep-seated interest in Panama because Panama has been a critical, we call that global choke point for international trade and military mobility. With its position connecting the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, the canal is a vital asset, not just for trade, but also for military logistics. So if you try to allow China to gain control or influence over the Panama Canal, it will give Beijing significant leverage in the Western Hemisphere, like Professor Yan said. This is, we call a sphere of influence. You try to dominate somebody's backyard, right? Somebody say, oh, don't make noise in my backyard. So this is American's backyard. So especially for Donald Trump, his idea is like we try to prioritize American first and national security. So the presence of Chinese companies involved in canal operations could be seen as a threat to U.S. military posture and economic security. So this is very, very important. The U.S. concern is legitimate because China can dual use these facilities for most commercial and military purposes. So this is very, very important. Especially, China has signed a lot of contracts with Panama, which now owes a significant amount of debt to China. If Panama is unable to repay, China might demand control for key assets, such as ports or facility rights. So this is very, very typical because it happened in Africa and also in Hambantota port in Sri Lanka. This is what we call debt trade diplomacy. This is so serious because they have to turn it back. Yes.
So, Professor, you talk about the debt trade diplomacy. Any other ramifications? Could you please tell us a bit more about that? How will that affect the other Central American countries? As mentioned before, do you think that maybe the other Central American countries will also take a step back from its close relations with China because of this policy?
Yeah, it's not a blessing, it's a curse because you owe too much money to China and your foreign debt is a significantly very, very big, and then it's going to influence your economy because the growth of your economy has to pay to your foreign debt. So this can be very, very serious. Especially Panama, maybe it's a model for some other South American countries because they are poor, they don't have enough money to pay back. So maybe it's time for them to change the course. Of course, maybe still some countries, they decide to continue. But the thing is that for poor countries, maybe it's the only way you can sort of to adjust your policy. Otherwise, you are gonna be stuck in the huge debt. It's not good for your country. Yeah.
So now moving to you, Professor Yan, we understand that, as both of you have mentioned, Central America, or you can say Central and South America, is deemed by the United States as its backyard. And this is a very important battleground for the U.S.-China rivalry. Do you think that this region will continue to be a flashpoint, or do you foresee any other regions will become the next flashpoint?
Well, my assumption is that Donald Trump is serious about Western Hemisphere. When he talk about, changing the Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of Americas, and then changing, trying to have control of Greenland and then Panama Canal. I think he's still focusing on Western Hemisphere. So other countries, like right now, we only have few. In Central America, we have Guatemala, we have Belize. And so these are the countries that I think probably diplomatic relation with Taiwan will be stabilized. But for China, I think China will not try to grab more here, because that would be, really, irritate the Trump administration. But at the same time, if Donald Trump wanted China to acknowledge its, I'll call preponderance of power in Central America, will China ask Donald Trump to acknowledge its preponderance of power in South China Sea? This is what I worry, that if, Beijing acknowledge here, you have your sphere of influence, but I also have my core interests in Taiwan, South China Sea, and then would that be a kind of like something that they can, swap their interests? So Taiwan, I think we need to be aware of that, because basically, just like I mentioned, no matter how good the relations of some Latin American countries like Brazil or Peru with China, they are so far from China. We know, from Taiwan's point of view, the farthest place for us to travel is South America, right? So very far. But Donald Trump also argued Taiwan is very far from the U.S. So this is what I worry about, is that China can easily say, well, yeah, okay, then I acknowledge your Central Latin American interests, but you also have to, accept my claim here.
That is something Taiwan has to be
aware
of. So definitely. You talk about Trump's policy, as we all know, it's all about making America first, right? So Trump has also mentioned that the U.S. ships were being severely overcharged when passing through the Panama Canal and not treated fairly. So Trump has demanded that the canal being returned back to the United States. And the Panamanian President Molino said that, well, the canal belongs to Panama and he could not negotiate. So Professor Tsai, how is this issue likely to develop in your opinion? Yes, regarding the ownership of the canal?
Yeah, because U.S. complaints the fees or rates are supercharged, so they want to get discount, okay? But it's very hard for them to take it back because it's their sovereign, Panamanian sovereign territory. But the thing is that you can get discount because the thing is that the whole canal was built by the United States. It was transferred in 1977. Until 1999. The thing is that they still have some privilege. So the U.S. is asking for priority rights of passage. And also they want to get discount because a lot of percentage of U.S. military ship and commercial ships have to go through the canal. So the thing is that they want to get discount. So it's a bargain. It's a leverage they can use. So for Donald Trump, he's a negotiating president. He likes to be, everything has to be transactional, that kind of thing, right?
It has to be fair, right?
Yeah, and then sometimes you have to have an offer first. Maybe I should take it back, right? Maybe it's you can say it's a bluff. You can do that, and then maybe we can discuss with that. Especially, he has some strategy with the allies. All right. So maybe it's not his goal. It's not his aim to take the whole canal, but it's his strategy to do that as a bargaining chip. you have to remember that it's very, very important for his style, especially Donald Trump, that kind of businessman-like, president.
Professor Yan, what's your take on this?
Okay, yeah, Donald Trump likes to bluff, but I think, if he cannot deliver, then some country will see through that bluffing. For example, he talked about tariff for Mexico and Canada. They somehow it's been delayed for a while, and then people think he will be able to somehow negotiate with Putin to get Ukraine war.
He said he could end the war in a day.
Yeah, in
but
a day,
hasn't
and then in
happened.
months. I think right now maybe years. Who knows? So, I think whatever he's trying to do right now, I think in Central America maybe he will get his way, but not the bigger countries in South America. Countries like Brazil, countries like Chile or Peru, or even Argentina is his ally, no problem. And then we have Colombia, traditionally being closer to the U.S., but other countries might not. But at the same time, I think Donald Trump, because of the past history of America, again, I mentioned, since the late 19th century until the mid-20th century or late 20th century, U.S. has been more interventionist in Latin America and felt it has the right to do it. I'll just use the quote from Kissinger when he tried to overthrow the government of the left-wing government of Chile. He said, we cannot sit here on the sideline and watch a country turn communist because of the irresponsibility of the people. So U.S. always justified, like, we know better, and Donald Trump always thinks he's a smart person, that this is better for you. But I have checked, some of the, so-called European website looking at Trump's claim about the American being unfairly charged. That's not the case. U.S. have, again, Professor mentioned about the the control of China is indirect. It's not completely correct. So there are a lot of exaggeration from Donald Trump. But I think he eventually just wants to have greater control of Panama. And we have to remember, U.S. got to build Panama Canal by separating Panama from Colombia, right? It used to be one country, and then U.S. somehow, get independence of Panama and then get the canal. So U.S. has a history of intervening in Central America. I think Central America knew that. That's why they somehow tried to work with Donald Trump. But Latin America, South America, I'm not sure that's the case.